So, hello everybody. I'm Matt Margolis. I'm the head of community at Lawtrades. If you don't know Lawtrades, we're a legal tech company that helps busy general counsel offices with flexible on-demand talent, lawyers, legal assistants, paralegals, legal operations folks, and contract managers, and a plethora of other folks. So thank you for being here today. We're doing our Innovator series. I'm here with the awesome Tammy Brandt. I'm so excited. This event is about esports. Tammy is the CLO and head of business and legal affairs at FaZe Clan. And FaZe Clan, I think, needs no introduction. So Tammy, if you don't mind providing a little bit of your background.
Sure. So hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Matt, thanks for having me. Super excited to be here today. I think esports is something a lot of people don't understand, but a lot of us do. So my background is traditional corporate lawyer. Went to law school, clerked on the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, and I went to big law for a couple different firms. And then I've been an in-house lawyer since 2010 at different companies, usually as a GC at kind of an emerging cutting edge company, but sometimes that company's acquired and I work, at the public company. So I am a true general counsel. I've worked in different industries, et cetera. And right now I'm at FaZe Clan, which is arguably the leading Gen Z lifestyle and culture brand with its roots in esports. We have 10 professional esports teams. We're very well known for winning a lot of championships across those different teams. But more importantly, we're a voice for Gen Z. So, 300 plus million people follow FaZe Clan and different of our content creators and our esports professionals across different platforms. And we view ourselves as a voice for the next generation. And that really resonates with Gen Z because Gen Z wants to talk and operate and communicate with a community in online forums. And Absolutely. So that's where FaZe plays.
That's awesome. I've got a bit of imposter syndrome. We talked about this before. I think you have the coolest background, especially going from clerking. Like, I think it's surreal. It's like that traditional clerking at a federal court, and now the general counsel, the CLO of a massive esports company, really cutting edge. And I guess I've got a question for you: is what attracts you to these kinds of companies? Like you said, these cutting edge companies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not the, stereotypical lawyer. So I like business. I've always been interested in business. I'm very entrepreneurial myself. So that's what attracts me to these type of opportunities. I like to go to companies that are disruptive and that they're doing something that nobody else has done before. And I've been fortunate enough to do that. I've done it in automotive. I've done it in tech at a cloud computing company, basically. I did a virtual reality company, and then now I'm at FaZe Clan. And again, FaZe Clan is trying to be, and it is more than just an esports company, right? Sure. So esports is its roots. It's how people seem to know FaZe, but it's so much more than that, and it's only going to keep growing. And that's really fun to be a part of.
That's awesome. Well, I guess I'll ask you. So, like, is FaZe going into, like, I guess I just don't know. Like, what is FaZe going into? You say it's a Gen Z platform.
Yeah.
So
I think FaZe is going to go where Gen Z goes, right? So in terms of what's happening with FaZe, it's a very exciting time. We actually announced last October that we were doing a SPAC deal with B. Riley. That deal was cleared by the SEC. There was a redemption deadline yesterday. There's a shareholder vote tomorrow, and it's set to close next Tuesday. And we're going to trade on the NASDAQ under FaZe next Wednesday. So that's really, really exciting thing for the company to kind of go to the next level, become a public company, be kind of the first in the space to go on that journey in the United States. There are some esports kind of based companies that are public in other countries, but to do it in the US, to do it in this environment, honestly, which is tough right now, if any of you are looking at SPACs or in the process of doing one, it's a tough environment right now to get that done. And it's tough generally for equity markets right now. We just, it's very choppy. So where's FaZe going to go? I mean, it's going to continue to grow. I think you'll see FaZe expanding more internationally. I mean, obviously we have, a lot of international fans around the world, but we, and we have certainly some professionals that reside internationally, but I think FaZe is generally, a US-based company. I mean, it's based in the US right now, and I would say that's where most of the activity is. I think, we're going to have the ability to grow quite a bit as a public company. And I think we'll expand. And I think there's a ton of opportunity. I know you guys had one of these, sessions on crypto, but like whatever the metaverse becomes, and the metaverse is, whatever you want to think about it, but it's clear the metaverse is coming and it's here. What it actually ends up being, I think, is still TBD. FaZe is going to play in the metaverse. Why? Because that's where our fans are. That's where our community interacts, is online, whether they're playing a game, whether they're a professional esport athlete, whether they're a sponsor that's communicating with our fans. They are looking at Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and other online platforms. And I think that's really what the metaverse is. It's this online community that's going to continue to interact, and you're going to be able to live your day-to-day life in the metaverse. And just like now, we have so many people that follow FaZe and that want to interact with us and be part of the community. I think that's a really exciting opportunity for FaZe.
That's awesome. I was not trained to be a metaverse attorney. I don't know if I'm ready for it, especially if I have to evict someone from the metaverse.
Yeah, I don't know about that either.
That's for another series.
Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating. Well, I guess we just got a question, if it's all right. I guess what challenges? Well, first off, congrats on the SPAC. Someone just said, which is fantastic. What challenges do you have being the first in the space going public?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I think a challenge is explaining to the market and investors, and even like insurance carriers, like getting D&O insurance for a public company, right? What is FaZe? I mean, because you can't say, oh, it's like company ABC and like this company over here. It's not apples to apples, right? So you can say, oh, well, we're kind of like this, but we also are, kind of like this. And we're really, a lifestyle content media company, again, with esports as one of our lines of business, right? So I think it doesn't fit squarely in something. So that has been a challenge, is honestly defining FaZe and explaining not only to investors that we're, entering the pipe, et cetera, but also, I know with the D&O insurance, we had several rounds of questions with different carriers. I mean, we obviously, we have insurance and it'll be in place next week. That's not the issue, but you just have to do a lot more explaining than if you're, a lot of electric vehicle companies have went public via SPACs. I mean, if you're an electric vehicle company, of course, you have to understand the technology and, what the roadmap is, but people understand what an electric vehicle is, right? Yeah. You look at FaZe and you say, hey, you're a lifestyle culture brand with roots in esports. And people are like, what in the world is that? And you just have to explain. Yeah.
That's fascinating. This is just selfish to me, just because I played in the insurance space as well. The D&O market outside of all of this is so wacky. So I understand that completely.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If any of you GCs or, in-house lawyers here, I mean, it's tough. The premiums have went up across the board. It doesn't matter what type of company, but for SPACs, especially, very, very tough market.
Yeah. My understanding is just there's no capacity anymore. And that's fascinating. That was selfish of me. I love insurance. Right. I appreciate it. So I guess let me ask you this: like, how did you get into esports? I mean, you've had this killer career at first as a federal clerk and then going into big law. Like, how did you make your way to esports?
Yeah, I mean, again, I made my way to esports because I like to go to these companies that are transformative and challenging. So I was, I've been an in-house lawyer now, since 2010 at various companies. And this is always the best way to get a job. I was in a great job, a company I loved, a lot of potential, still involved with the company, still an advisor, but I get a call from a recruiter and they're like, hey, there's this esports company in LA. They're interested in, hiring a new CLO. Do you want to talk to them? And that's how it came to be. And I love sports. You can see from my background, Notre Dame football. I went to law school at Notre Dame, but I'm a huge sports nut. I'm not a gamer myself. So I got to say, like, it's not like I go play Call of Duty or Fortnite when I go home at night, but I understand the passion around it because I'm such a passionate sports fan myself. So when I took the call, of course, and I started to look at it and I talked to a couple of people at FaZe, and honestly, it's great that it's in sports because I love sports, but really what's more important is I saw the opportunity and they said, we want you to take this company public. And that, for somebody with my background, is like music to my ears. I had not actually been able to do that. I've taken several companies and they've sold to public companies, and I've been on the other side. But to actually be able to take a company through the process has been very challenging and rewarding, and something I hadn't done. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. It's in an industry like I get that's really going places, and I get to do something I've always wanted to do.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, so and cool. I mean, and again, like a lot of things in life, I mean, it looks like, and again, it hasn't actually closed, so let's get to next Wednesday. But like, you know, I didn't know it would actually go public, right? Yeah. So I mean, I joined knowing that, you know, the alternative might be another, you know, round of private financing, et cetera. But I think a lot of things in life, you know, you're not going to hit the home run unless you get the bats, right? You got to put yourself in the opportunity to have, you know, the opportunity to hit the ball out of the park. And this opportunity gave me that, and it looks like it's going to, you know, close next week. And when that happens, that'll be something I haven't done in my career, and I'm going to be very proud of.
I got to ask, are you going to ring the bell?
Yeah, we're going to ring the bell. Yep. So I'll be there. Yeah. NASDAQ next morning, 9:30 Eastern.
I'm going to have it on. I'm excited.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Pumped. Well, so I guess I'll ask you this. There are probably people watching that are in law firms currently, or even probably in law school, and they're wondering how to get into this kind of this field. And I guess not even just esports. I want to expand it into a lifestyle brand company like FaZe Clan. What advice would you give those folks?
Yeah, I mean, I think the advice I give I like to mentor, et cetera. I mean, be good at what you do. So you're at a law firm, you're in-house, like just be good at what you do, right? Like whatever that is, corporate securities, you know, if you're a generalist, be good at what you do. And then, obviously, you know, network, start to know people in the space. So again, I wasn't like, I'm going to be an esports lawyer. And I wasn't like, I mean, it just wasn't what I was focused on, but I was always kind of staying, you know, Tech GC, ACC, like, you know, I was networking in the space. And then I found out later, but a former outside counsel I worked with was contacted by this recruiter and said, hey, you should talk to Tammy. So again, it's like, I think, you know, it's a network, but then again, why did I get the job? I got the job not because I'm a sports fanatic. I mean, I am, but that's not why I got this job at FaZe. It's because I have a history of being able to take companies through different financings, sales to public companies, and I have the corporate background, IP background that you need in order to go through a process like this. So, I mean, that's how I got the job at FaZe. I would say that I've hired several people since I've been here. One of those folks was at a law firm, passionate about esports, right? So the nice thing about FaZe, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, we can post a job on LinkedIn and we get a lot of applications, right? Like I know that the job market is tough in certain areas. People generally want to work at FaZe. So I got flooded with these applications for this role, but throughout the process, this one individual just really resonated, and he was just passionate about esports, and he really got the business. Plus, though, he checked all the other boxes. It's not like they had to be an esport. I mean, I didn't know anything about esports when I joined FaZe, really. So that's kind of a long-winded way of saying how I got here. And if you're interested in it, network, certainly get to know people like myself in esports if you're interested in esports, and let people know what you want to do. Because if you don't articulate it, I mean, how are they going to know?
Exactly. And I think that's a very fair point too. And I almost feel like it's a barrier to entry. Like you think you're like, oh, I have to have a background in this. Like if I didn't work, maybe people think like I should have worked at a sports team generally, and maybe I can transition to esports. I don't think that's necessarily true. It's right. It's being a corporate attorney, being a generalist, because your company, I'm sure, needs, to your point, IP attorneys, corporate attorneys, tax attorneys, maybe litigators, what have you. So if you're watching, like you can have any background, but 100% to your point, Tammy, like you got to be good at what you do. You can't just walk in, which I think sometimes you think that's how it is. Just like, oh, you know, it's just a handshake. That's not true. Like Tammy, you showed obviously that you were like you in your craft, like people knew you, and that's how you got into that position.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important. I mean, there's a lot of different seminars on this, but you have to have a personal brand, right? And mine is more general. It's again, not like I'm kind of all over the place. If you look at my career, it's like, you know, I'm somewhere usually 3 or 4 years, but when you're at these like kind of cutting edge emerging companies, usually that's really as long as you want to be there. Hopefully they sell or they, they kind of go to the next iteration. Sure. But, it's not like I'm a specialist in a certain industry. I am a true general counsel that has shown the ability to take companies to the next level in different industries. And that's my brand, right? That works for Tammy Brandt. It might not, whatever your brand is, but you want to know what that is. And you want to keep pursuing opportunities and networking opportunities to kind of build out that brand.
It's funny because my brand is a little bit different. I would say if you follow me on social media, it's probably very similar to Face Clan.
Okay, good.
But it's awesome. But I think to your point exactly, personal branding is how you get places more than anything. And I greatly appreciate that you continue to work on your personal brand while in-house. I think most folks probably think that you just stop, right? Personal branding is more of a business development tool when you're a private practice attorney, but that's not the case.
Certainly. I think it's as critical both. I mean, again, I'm old enough at this point. I've seen a couple like cycles where things go up and down, right? I think both ways. I mean, I know law firms, have been like dying to keep associates. It's really hard, but I mean, I think if we're in a recession or heading into one, law firms will adjust as well. So I think you have to have that brand both places. And in-house, the same thing. Companies like I work at, they sell, they get new management. You never know, right? And you have to have that brand so you also can go to the next thing. So I think it's personally equally as important in both types of companies.
I literally couldn't agree more. We got another question, which I think is a good question. What kind of networking groups are you a part of? Which would you recommend?
Yeah, so I think it depends where you're at in your career. So at this point, I love Tech GC. I know that's how I met the folks at Lawtrades. I mean, I'm very involved in it. I think it's fantastic. Like, having been at GC for a long time, to see that come along and gain such traction, and they're fantastic. They have great programs. Association of Corporate Counsel, I've been involved with since I became an in-house lawyer. The whole, before I was at GC, I think it's a great organization. It has a fantastic annual meeting each year with great, CLE, et cetera. And then, then like I'm a member of Chief, which is, women executives. So that's not just lawyers, right? That's women executives that are supporting each other. And you basically have a coach and you have a group of folks. And I think it's evolved. Those are the main ones that I personally am involved in right now. But throughout my career, I certainly have kind of been involved in other organizations. Now, honestly, I mean, I have a son who's 4.5 and I have, a pretty busy job. So I only have time for so many things, but those are the ones that I spend most of my time with now.
I love Tech GC too. I'm in the same boat, and I couldn't agree more. We have our own community channel as well. That's our community group. And we hear the same thing. Like, it's those kinds of channels really do push opportunities, again, your personal brand, because then people know who you are, especially in the industry where these industries, tech is the greatest example. Yeah. It's both big and small, I guess is the best way to put it. It's a small industry, but it's also big. It's hard to describe, but there's a lot of people involved, but it's really not that big of an industry. But
I mean, almost every business touches tech, right? Like, really, if you think about it, even if you're consumer products company, you're using tech to create the product and to market it and sell it. So I think quite honestly, you need to brand yourself with some type of technology component, no matter what you're doing, because it definitely will have applicability.
I couldn't agree more, especially over the next couple of years. Like, tech is everything. So I've got like more questions I want to ask you, but these all are really good questions. So I'm going to honestly keep going back to this. So how do you convey your personal brand to the companies that you're looking to join?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the elevator pitch. I mean, obviously, especially if you're going to be the GC, I mean, there's a lot of different levels of interviews you're going to go through, right? It starts low and then you get to the executive team. Then you usually talking to folks on the board or important investors. So what's your brand? And again, you have to have that concise and they're not normally that as focused for the GC on the specific industry, but it's your ability to lead, to be someone that they want at the table. So you have a business mind, not just a legal mind. And, I find it important when I go to take a job to make sure that the CEO, understands that it's important that I continue to develop my brand. So I want to go speak at things. I want to do things like this, right? Again, it doesn't always mean it costs a lot of money. A lot of times they're virtual, especially these days. But it's important that I am a face of the company, to the extent it makes sense. And like I was totally geeky, but I've always wanted to go to the sports lawyers event. Well, I haven't actually been a sports lawyer like squarely in that until this job. So like I spoke at a sports lawyer event in Atlanta a few months ago. I mean, that's important to me. And it was about esports and gender diversity, et cetera. I mean, it's really an important topic, but it was great that that I had the opportunity to do that. And then my company supports me, not only being a face of FaZe, but also continuing to develop my brand.
I wish I had something to add. That's like the perfect advice. The only thing I'll say is, yeah, like those events are so crucial. Webinars, articles, social media presence, if you're utilizing it like that. Listen, that's how I got my job at Lawtrades. That's how I got my job going in-house as well. So I think that advice is so crucial to anybody, especially to tie back to esports, to get into esports in that industry where everyone is online, everyone understands visibility. And it's also finding a company, to your point. I mean, finding a company that wants you to promote your brand, that helps you promote your brand. I mean, that's also an employer you want to, that's
important especially at the GC level. I mean, it's really important that you have that support of your company. And some people will take more advantage of it than others. And again, that goes with your kind of, what you want to do, where you're at in your career, et cetera. So that's all like a personal decision. But I think having that support is interesting. And I will say, I'm not on Instagram personally. I mean, I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I definitely keep that up to date. But I probably need to be, because I will go to events and people are like, "Oh, I want to follow you on Insta," and I'm like, I don't even have I don't have an account. So I mean, honestly, it's something. It's on my list. Once I get this company, public, one of the things that I kind of want to do, I have to kind of evolve a little bit as well, because people that want to interact with me and younger folks in the community and outside, that's where they're interacting, and I'm not even active in it. So it's actually good for me to go to these things and talk to people and hear how they're building their personal brands. And a lot of it is on social media, and it's not where I actually spend a lot of time. But trust me, FaZe is all about social media, right? It's all about, I mean, our content creators make insane amounts of money. I mean, it just blows my mind by posting stuff on social media, right? And brands sponsoring them and ad revenue and everything else. And what is really true, and this is so different than when I came up through the ranks, it's absolutely the right path for certain folks. A lot of times, people that are in the FaZe orbit are, 13 to 18, 13 to 23. And if you have the right number of followers, I wouldn't go to college either. You look at what some of these people are making. One of our really popular creators said to me, when I was in high school, my mom kept just trying to, take my Xbox controller away from me, right? And now I just bought her a house. I mean, literally, this guy makes almost $1 million a month. And he bought his parents a house. And now she's like, yeah, keep the Xbox controller, right? Because it doesn't mean that you eventually wouldn't go to college, but it's just like a professional athlete in some situations. And and a lot of these aren't even necessarily just the esports professionals. These are just content creators associated with FaZe. But there's a real business there, and it's a real way to make a living. And you treat it like a business, and it pays off. And I've seen it. It's really been eye-opening for me to see the FaZe universe and how amazing some of these folks are in creating their content and their followers and continuing to curate it. It's really amazing.
First off, unbelievable amounts of money. I've had the same epiphany when I saw, I think someone was on Twitch and they had explained how much they make and how much they make in donations to Twitch or on Pantheon or whatever they're utilizing. Yeah. It's unbelievable. I guess that I have a question to that. Do you think that's the future as well? Do you see a lot of lawyers jumping into, working with content creators, not just esports, but generally speaking? Yeah.
I mean, it is a future. I don't know if it's the future, right? But it's certainly, there's no doubt that that's what, there's going to be more and more money and more companies and content. And there's that's where things are going. And again, what does that look like in the metaverse? Again, it's there's all of these different communities will all converge. And there's a lot of issues there, privacy issues, IP issues, a lot of interesting things. So I think lawyers that understand it and that are interested in it, there's absolutely a path there. And it could be very lucrative, to be quite honest, just like, crypto, blockchain.
Sure.
Like there's again, like, and you can talk about the NFT crypto meltdown current, that's happened.
Yeah.
It's here to stay. Like what exactly survives is like a lot of things, but my personal opinion is, there's no doubt that blockchain and NFTs and crypto, there's absolutely a very bright future there. But I think it got, a little inflated. And then I think there's been a correction. That happens all the time. And I do think that lawyers focusing there's a lot of opportunity.
This is selfish of like the whole lawyer community, but like I look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Well, they're going to have to regulate it. So, if lawyers need jobs, that's where
not a bad. Lawyers are really good at that stuff. Exactly.
It's so true. I couldn't agree more. To talk in the crypto space, I do think that's the future. Well, when I say the future, I think a future path for many lawyers. Lawyers are traditionally securities reg attorneys that were white collar attorneys that were tax attorneys. But in the metaverse as well, I think the metaverse, I'm so fascinated to see also when FaZe really takes over that space, but what law looks like in the metaverse, or at least what types of lawyers do well.
I'm super geeked out about it myself. I'm excited to like not be spending all my time taking the company public and really like dig into it myself, right? Because I think it's all the things I've been doing for a lot of my career at these cutting edge companies is helping the company grow, negotiating and drafting like interesting commercial arrangements that kind of push the envelope, right? IP rights, monetization rights. What does a rev share look like in the metaverse? Who knows, right? Because you don't know exactly how open or like how it's all going to work. There's a lot of really interesting issues there.
I didn't even think about that. Huh. Oh my gosh, this is going to be crazy. This is me
maybe in a few years, we'll be having this and I'll be talking about the metaverse. I'll be an expert in that. I'm not sure. I'm not yet, but I'm looking forward to really digging into it.
I think this is the coolest thing. It's funny because like this is completely candid for everyone watching. Like when we created this event, like we were like, this is going to be great about esports, but honestly, it's about esports, but it's not just about esports. It's about the future, I guess the future of content, the future of where everything lives. And it's not just esports, but you're right. It is the metaverse. It is where everyone will be. So I think
let's talk about esports. Esports is just blowing up, right? Like it's just more and more people are and esports, again, people use the term, yes, they're professional players, just like LeBron James plays for the Lakers. Of course, there's professional esports teams, but esports is, you can describe it, again, I'm not like the expert at the definition, but it's really gaming. Like it's online gaming and all sorts of different, iterations, and it's huge. And more and more, my son is 4.5. He always wants to play like the Lego game on his iPad and stuff. Like he's a future gamer, and they are like, it's really interesting to watch all the data, which is so resounding that is what young people are doing at a very early age, and they don't give it up as they get older, right? And then they become adults, and they still want to do the Xbox and the PlayStation, and they still want to game. So there's a lot of opportunity there in esports. And I know one of the questions is, what's the challenge for women? Yeah. This is tough in esports. Women aren't always respected in the esports universe, especially as professionals. So I get the question a lot, why aren't there more women esports professionals? And unlike like basketball, like LeBron James, like physically is like, it would be very difficult for a female to compete with him, just the physical attributes. Sure. In gaming, the fast twitch skills, there's not a lot of studies, and hopefully there are more, but it's more of a level playing field. There's not as much data that like a female can't be just as good as a male. And there are excellent female gamers. I'm not saying they're not, but aren't enough. But part of it is online gaming is a community, and there's, you're talking and you're communicating, and they're harassed. They are, and they're treated poorly. Yeah. And that has driven a lot of women out of it. And it's unfortunate. So I can say this as somebody in the industry, one of my goals, and definitely, FaZe, is to get more women involved, get more diverse folks involved, and start to change the community so it's more inclusive. And that's just the right thing to do. And that, I think when you do that, gaming is going to become even bigger, because then people feel safer operating in that universe.
I've heard so many horror stories, and I to your point, and we've seen the news stories too of like it's been a couple years since like there was bigger events like Gamergate stuff, but like it's the industry needs to change. Like the industry needs to change, and I couldn't agree with you more. Listen, I've been on Xbox Live, and I've heard how people talk, and right, like, and it's like it's too much. So
I mean, I usually only hear the really bad things, like when somebody from FaZe like says something they shouldn't, and it's just appalling to me. But part of it is the culture that it grew up. I mean, FaZe Clan was started like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
3 guys playing, Call of Duty on their Xbox Live together. They didn't know each other, right? But they met and they became the FaZe Clan. And that's how FaZe Clan got started, right? It was 3 bros, gaming.
Yeah.
And then it's grown now, fast forward into a company that's going public, at like $1 billion valuation. It's amazing. But it's like a lot of things, esports and the community has to evolve, and it has to, be inclusive, or it's going to suffer long term. I personally think so. I think it's really important that that companies and people like myself, companies like FaZe, diverse candidates like myself, like continue to help, drive that change, because otherwise it'll be unfortunate if it doesn't, because then esports is going to be known as, that's kind of cool and people like to do it, but it's not really a safe place, for women and diverse candidates to participate in. And that's
you rock, Tammy. I'm sorry. I'm going to be more candid in this. I'm like, I love this conversation. That's awesome. It's I guess speaking of the industry, like it's so international as well, right? Like when I was growing up, I remember playing like StarCraft, and like when we were playing, we remember that the best players were in Korea. The Korean teams were so good, such a competitive level. Do you see, I guess for esports, is that the difference you're seeing maybe as opposed to regular sports, like such a bigger international reach? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the opportunity, honestly. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's an opportunity there because of the reach, and it's easy to expand, right? Because it's, the internet, right? Like, so I mean, not that everyone has the internet, but it's obviously more of something that's open up. It's not like, have NBA teams in certain countries, right? Like, it's not like you're limited by that. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there, but it just requires the support of the publishers. I mean, there's a lot of data on this, but I'm not like prepared to like talk about the data in detail. But like even females as they're portrayed in games is not a way that is reality, right? And even men, like a lot of times, are really buff and like, that's not the way all men look.
It's definitely not me.
So yeah, exactly. It's not me either. So I mean, I think as gaming becomes more and more popular, there's also a role here for the publishers of the games, right, to make it more reality. So it's not like basically reinforcing these ideals that aren't reality. Like not everyone looks like that, and the women shouldn't be scantily clad and basically with cuffs on them like Princess Leia, and Jabba the Hutt. You know what I'm saying? Like they should be badass females out there, doing what the men are doing as well, right? So I think, and you've seen evolution here. It's not like that hasn't happened, but you've seen the evolution in the last few years. But historically, again, and there wasn't a lot of diverse characters in the games, right? And you're seeing that change, and that's all good for the industry.
Yes, I don't have a comment. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Especially as someone growing up with games, and I have seen the progression in. I think you can look at Mortal Kombat's a perfect example of like how everyone is portrayed in Mortal Kombat. And looking to, it's such ridiculous portrayals of folks. And then as you get to the future, things will change. People will look more like people, which would be the future, which should be.
And what's amazing is a lot of games now aren't just shooting games, right? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, even FaZe Clan, it's like Call of Duty it's like kind of where it started, right? But gaming is a lot of different things, right? So that's all good, right? That only is going to foster esports, whether it's professional or just, casual. It's just going to help attract more people to it, because it's going to be games that resonate with people of all different, but, a lot of, it's just a fact. I mean, I think the data, obviously females aren't as like gung-ho about all the shooting games, right? But of course, there's other ones. So again, again, the data will sort out, and there's not a lot of data, but I'm glad that there's more and more being collected and we can see it, and then we can focus where we want to change
the industry. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we have a question from the audience. So is FaZe Clan international? And if so, what legal issues do you generally face because of that?
Yeah, so we have a presence in Southeast Asia, but we don't have offices like all over the world. But again, FaZe is mostly an online, content media company, right? So it's not like we have to have. So yes, we're international. It's about 50-50. 50% of our community is U.S. and 50% around the world. I think the biggest issues, at least right now, and they'll change as FaZe kind of grows. A lot of the same issues a lot of you have in your industry: privacy, data, right? IP, protecting the name, protecting the brand, collecting data. Where are we collecting the data? How are we collecting the data? How are we sharing it? Where is it stored? All those good things that a lot of us have to deal with. So we are international, but I think what I said at the beginning, we haven't really focused on growing the international community as much as we should, and that is a ton of opportunity for FaZe as a public company to like really go, raise our profile around the world. We already are known and we certainly have fans, but I think there's a ton of opportunity there for us to get much bigger.
Awesome. Oh, absolutely. Like, especially again, in I remember again, Southeast Asia is dominating in esports. So good at esports. So but then another area.
We have a PUBG team over there that does very, very well. I mean, again, we certainly have professionals that are international. So it's not like we're not, but again, we haven't
but a bigger presence.
Made some of the moves that I think hopefully in the next year or two, you'll see FaZe making more moves and we'll be even more international than we are now.
You guys are so cool. So, so I'll ask you this question. Since it really is a Gen Z lifestyle brand, do you see any sort of different generational things, like dealing with a lot of folks that are Gen Z?
Yeah, I mean, Gen Z, they move a different way. I think it's a big, for somebody like myself, like even the employee, at least currently HR reports to me, and that may or may not stay as the company grows. But I think not only employees, but content creators, but Gen Z, again, like millennials, they have different things that are important to them, right? The data shows that a lot of times they don't stay at the same job as long as like previous generations. There's a lot of that, and you have to respect that. I think COVID just accelerated this, the whole hybrid work, environment. Like FaZe is cool. It's a cool brand. And we definitely already kind of had a hybrid work model, but I think we'll have to continue to have that in order to attract the talent. So it's a long-winded say, and I would say even dealing with our content creators and our professionals, it's different than, me dealing with, I don't know, a lawyer at a law firm or another GC, right? Like it's a different life. Like the other day I had a Zoom scheduled with one of our content creators to talk about some issues around going public. He just had some questions and didn't show up for the Zoom. I was kind of not that worried about it. Like 20 minutes later, he's like, oh, I'm not really used to following a schedule. Like, because again, that's not how they make their money. What are they doing? They're doing cool things and putting it on the internet and they're streaming, and they're not like, my life is governed by a calendar and all these Zooms and all these different, but that's okay. Like, so I think and I was like, no problem. And then we talked. It was not, it wasn't a big deal, but you have to just realize that, they just move and they kind of have different ways of going about it. But I think this is the biggest thing I would say that I've learned at FaZe. It doesn't mean they're not just as effective. They might go about how they make their money or how they work differently. I'm not sure the end result is any different. And I think that's really important as an employer of, Gen Z and a company that operates there, is to keep an open mind. And just because maybe it's not the way like all the other places you've worked are, doesn't mean it's wrong. Maybe it's actually better.
I mean, they've monetized their lives. I mean, I have nothing but respect for everyone that's working like that. I think it's the coolest thing.
I mean, if they can make their money and working an hour a day, and that's what we need out of them, why should we tell them to do it differently? We shouldn't, right? I mean, it's working. So, yeah.
Exactly. It's just a different way to do it. I think it's I'm fascinated by, like, we both have young kids. I'm fascinated to see what that generation does. Isn't
I
it?
agree. I would never have thought that, and again, mine's only 4.5, so I mean, there's still a long time before
I
but
hear
I
you.
would have never thought that because it was so important to my parents that my sister and I go to college, right? Like
Yeah,
it wasn't really like what we studied or what we did after that, but we were going to go to college, right? Like that was just how I
yeah,
was
it's what you
raised.
did.
Yeah, it's what you did. And it's so interesting. I don't know, if Bobby, my son, like is into other things, like I mean, I would be more open to it now that I understand like there's a real path, but I would probably still be like, okay, you can do this for a little while or do it. And as long as it, is interesting for you and fun and
Sure.
you're making a living, but then you might want to go to school later. But that also is the thing. There's no reason you have to go to college right away. You can go to college later. And you see that happen a lot of times in life. And I think that's just fine.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, they're innovating. The series
Yeah.
is innovators, and that's an innovative path as well. I mean, I remember the same thing growing up, and my parents saying like you have to go to college, and then I go to college like we got to go to law school, got to be a lawyer. And in retrospect, I mean, for what I do on the internet as well, and how I converse with our community, maybe that didn't have to be the case. Maybe it could have just. You're right, and it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. The world has changed, and it's very cool. And I love to see what Gen Z is doing. So I couldn't agree more. I think everyone watching is probably like Matt may leave Lawtrades after this and go work with FaZe Clan. I'm not, I swear, but I'm a huge fan. I think everything you're doing is stellar.
Thank you.
So I guess what's the best part of working for FaZe Clan?
I love the energy. I do. Like it's I'm at the office today. I mean, I'm sitting in my office right now, but like outside and we have a basketball court, there's a skateboard ramp. It's like people rolling around on scooters and they're working too, but again, it's the vibe, right? Like it's this like very cool creative vibe and it's good. It's really exciting to come to work every day. I get to wear, t-shirts and cool tennis shoes, and that's great. Like I don't have to dress like a lawyer every day, like all suited up, etc. So yeah, I mean it's a cool vibe, and it's very. I feel like FaZe is the future, right? FaZe is one of those companies that's going to have a real influence on the future. And how cool is it that somebody at my age, I'm in my mid 40s, right? And I've worked some cutting edge, like innovative companies, but also like more old school established. I mean, not that they weren't good jobs, but I've kind of worked in both. So it's really fun for me that I get to like work here and help them grow. And I really hope that, eventually they're like, yeah, Tammy really had a role in helping take FaZe to the next level. And that's why I wanted to come here. And I feel like that's what we're doing.
That's awesome. I guess some of the last questions I have for you, and it's kind of the future, and we touched on this a bit, but not just with FaZe, not just with esports, but generally speaking, what tips do you have for someone that's going into law school or trying to become an attorney, or maybe is a junior attorney, unsure of their path?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best tip in life is to do things you enjoy and to learn. I mean, as a junior attorney, I mean, if you're going to law school, you want to go to law school, presumably for a reason. It's tough. Like law school's hard, right? Like, so you have to go and it's different, right? It doesn't matter what you studied in undergrad. Law school's very different type of way to learn, right? And it teaches you how to think like a lawyer, but then actually being a lawyer is totally different, right? So yes, some of the principles you learn in law school, but I do contracts and SEC stuff and stuff all day that is not what you actually learn in law school, but it gave you the foundation then to build on that, right? So I think it's it takes hard work. I think you have to buckle in, and my best advice for anyone is to become good at what you do, and then that will translate into other things and enable you to follow your passion even more. So I love that I'm at FaZe. I have access to all these cool sports lawyers and sporting events and like all this, like this world of sports that I wasn't like living in before. Sure. But I kind of, the only reason I'm here is because I had the background and the skills to help take the company to the next level. So it could be any type of company really. And I just happen to just love kind of the ecosystem it evolves in. So it's like a bonus in a way. So that would be my advice. And, as a junior lawyer, especially if you're at a law firm, It's great training. It is. I mean, or in-house, like you need to learn, try different things, really like understand the business, because it's only going to help you in whatever's next. And I mean, that's the biggest thing as the GC. You've got to go into the business and be viewed as a business partner. You have to. You can be like the best lawyer ever, but if you're in-house and you're viewed as an obstruction all the time, or your team is not responsive or helpful, you will not last long. You won't. And that is really important to understand. It's different than a law firm. And I'll tell you, they take risks. You have to understand the risk profile. They have a high risk tolerance, because you know what? They want to be this badass cutting edge company in Gen Z. And in order to do that, you have to push the envelope, right? And as their lawyer, I have to be on board with that. Now, that doesn't mean they always get to do everything they want to do. Sometimes I'm like, no, but it's usually no, but let's do it, but let's do it with these parameters. And that is so critical to be a successful general counsel. And as an in-house lawyer, it's actually very similar, because your clients aren't going to rehire you if you aren't like helping them move their business forward. You just won't.
I couldn't agree more. When I was in-house, I remember, I don't know if it's like a fundamental shift. Like when I was private practice, I really wanted to say no all the time, because that's just what you're paying me to say, right? You're just like, no, that's not gonna work. And then I went in-house and I was in private equity, and no was not the answer. It was to your point. It was like, this doesn't sound right. You're right. Like, this might be the case, or we could do it like this, and these are the other risks, but it's your choice.
I've had that. I'm not going to say the name of the firm, but I'm working, I work with a lot of law firms. Right now I'm working with like one of the best law firms in the world, definitely. And it's like, there was an issue and they're like, they gave me an answer and I said, yeah, not the right answer. Like, and again, you know what? They got to the right answer. And they said to me the other day, one of the partners I was talking to, they're like, everyone really likes working with you in Phase, but they think you're actually a tough client. And I thought that was kind of funny, because I don't think of myself that way, but I push it, and I kind of, know what I want to accomplish, and I'm okay. Like, and then if they really explain, and this is, to be a good GC, you have to be like this. Then they explain, no, actually, you don't want to do that because of, and they kind of give me, and then it's like, oh, okay, actually that's like more complex than I thought. Or when I push them and be like, no, that's just not going to work. Like, and a lot of times the answer at Phase is they're going to do it anyway. So, okay, guys, I understand that's your answer, but that can't be the answer because they're going to do it anyway. So how can we help minimize the risk to the extent we can? And that a lot of times is what you're trying to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, from experience, I couldn't agree more. I've been in a very similar situation where you got to give me a better plan. You have to give me a better plan, because that's not going to fly. So and
if your outside counsel doesn't do that, you got the wrong outside counsel. You just do. And you got to move to one that thinks more that way. And again, I've worked with a lot of outside counsel over the years around the world. And it's actually one of the things I like most about my job is I always get to work with super smart people, that are doing really interesting things, and I learn from them, right? But you have to have outside counsel or other advisors that understand what you're trying to accomplish and that can help you get there. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And to that point, like, I get to talk to people like you on a daily basis.
It's awesome.
It's the same thing where, like, I do feel a little bit of imposter syndrome, probably more than a little bit, but it helps. It helps.
Well, you have the online thing figured out, Matt. So I might be coming to you. Might have to help me with my.
I will make your Instagram.
All right.
I'm down.
All right, cool.
So I guess I've got one last question for you, and it's a good question. And I think, so what's next for you within Phase? So after going public, what's next?
I am super excited about my next phase at Phase. I'm public company GC. I have a fantastic team. I had another person join my team today. It's his first day. Like, cool. I have a great team. I feel like we're set up to really help this company grow. And I personally am going to go help open up some different monetization streams, work with the business folks, knock down some deals, like really get in there and get in the business and help drive the business, which I love to do. And I haven't been able to do as much of that because I've been so busy with the larger corporate deal. So I'm actually super excited about it. I'm looking forward to a short break when I get this thing done. And then I'm ready to come back and like hit the ground running and really help drive the business. And that's where, and I'm fortunate at this point in my career, I can do that. But like, I understand how to manage the legal function and what needs done, but I'm just as interested in being a business person, right? And helping drive the bottom line. And that's really going to be fun for me.
That's so cool. I have, this is my last question. Will you be going to Disney World when it's over?
No, but later this year, not immediately after, but if Disney wants to sponsor that, they can circle back with me. But no, we will.
If you're watching Disney, you heard it.
My son has been to Disneyland once, and we are going to Disney World in early December, so we are going to get a trip in. Yeah.
Let me know. I'm in Florida too.
Okay, good.
I got to take mine. Well, Tammy, I want to thank you so much again. This has been a fantastic conversation. Everyone watching is probably like, Matt, like you just asked a bunch of questions that you wanted to know the answer to, but that might be the case, but you have provided such valuable insight. A lot of folks that are watching probably want to go to esports, want to follow a similar path or their own path, but do it the same way. And I think those people definitely appreciate it. So for everyone watching on Thursday, the 28th, we will have our next event with Uber and Viva Solutions, talking about the challenging, challenging the gender pay gap in legal. The RSVP link is in the chat. And we will be also launching our new podcast, Not Billable. That's going to be tomorrow. Please keep your eyes peeled. I've been looking forward to it. We have some awesome guests. And Tammy, if you have some free time, if you want to jump on the podcast as well, I would appreciate it.
Good to know. All right.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thank you so much for your time today. And I hope you have a great rest of your week.
All right. Bye, everyone.